save about 1,000 plus.
To work out cheaper for me.
4,000.
215, even more.
It's for 200 plus. 400 bucks of savings.
Good morning. Here's to bring you guys for a drive in the 360 camera with you as the passenger next to me. All right. So what I have here is the brand new, not brand new, but it has been heavily updated last year. The Toyota Hilux top spec 2.8 liter engine Rogue. Well, they call this the Toyota Hilux Rogue. I like that name. Rogue implies a very tough character. There's a very tough Lexus RX, the old one behind me, with the new spindle grille and matte bronze wrap, trying to be tough behind me. The car looks so tiny from my rearview mirror. Anyway, this Hilux is very high spec. Okay, it has lane keep assist, it has radar cruise control. That means it has dynamic cruise control, which means it will be able to follow the car in front. And what's amazing is how the Japanese put it this way: when this car came out, there were no considerations for the inclusion of such high-tech stuff, right? So how do they steer the car without being able to? They were able to improvise it using that's what I get from Con when they went for the test drive for this. I think Chris Wee and Con went for it. They used the braking of either side to create the unequal rotation to steer your car. That sounds pretty amazing. I hope I could give it a try. That's a nice 6 Series. It's been some time since I drove a pickup, so every time I go up one, I'm like, oh, I have to remind myself that the rear suspension is bumpier than normal passenger cars. But other than that, there aren't much differences. What is going on? Oh, it's still recording. What's wrong with you, Insta360? Anyway, okay, the engine has been massively upgraded. This is a brand new engine, and it has 204 horsepower, 500 Newton meters of torque. Finally! I think the Hilux fans were like, finally. But you know what they say when Toyota takes some time to match up with others? It means they know they can do it reliably. That has always been Toyota. They are not in the need to rush something out to the market. But when they do it right. That's Toyota for you. And I'm again reminded to the enjoyment of driving a pickup, because you just felt you're a bit invincible when you're in a pickup. You know, it's like, come what may. I'm fine. Just throw whatever you have at me and it's fine. Now, how does the car drive? It drives well. It drives really well. I'm amazed with cars over the past 10 years. You know, you hardly can get into a car and they completely suck at handling. You hardly, you know, in terms of drivetrain, suspension, tuning and all this, I think every single car maker deserves a pat on their back. And of course, those who brought these to consumers' expectations deserves a pat on their back as well, because now it's more about how the car maker was able to tune the engine or make sure the drivetrain is working perfectly well with one another. It's more it's no longer about whether the car, when you corner, does it end up in a super clumsy mess and all that. And of course, I don't want to. If you notice, I no longer talk about whether the steering has feel or not, because it is already a moot point by somewhere around 2015. All right. Now, if it wasn't a super enthusiast car like a Civic Type R or Megane RS and all that, right? Why would someone demand something like this to be part of the test drive criteria, right? I just watched a video of an American driving a Hongqi. I don't know whether you know this brand or not. Red flag, literally meaning red flag in China. It is a luxury car, and this is the official car brand for Chinese premiers, right? So you can imagine how they look like. Huge grills, very stately kind of look. And I saw the guy talking about that car not having steering feel. I'm like, does any in this, like S-Class, 7, 5, A6, E-Class, all this? I mean, anyway. Okay, the power delivery just feels really, really nice. It wasn't like those days in pickups where it's a no and then all situation, right? Like when you are going off when you're just rolling off, you depress the throttle and there's like a deep void of nothingness, and then you go further, and then as the boost builds up, and then you just go, you know. No, this one I can forget about putting my foot down to initiate the turbo. I no longer have to, because it does it well. It doesn't have like a huge nothing and then a mountain of torque. It no longer makes me feel that way. In fact, I feel like driving it like a normal day-to-day driving, because it will move. And I believe this is also part of the reason why, after bumping up the power by so much, Toyota claims that they get about a 10% fuel economy. And I put aside the official figures based on proper NEDC cycles when they test the car, you know, like this stretch, you have to go how many kmh, and then you have to brake, and then you have to go over a speed bump and all that. I just talk about it from a user behavioral perspective, right? If I don't need to kick down the car that often, I put my foot down and it already starts moving, right? I'm gonna save fuel. Okay, so back to saving fuel. You see, a lot of times when you drive a car that has lower horsepower or lower response, right? When you do the kick down just to get the car moving, most of the time after that you're gonna lift off your throttle, right? You're gonna lift off because you actually don't need that much, but you need some, right? So let me see how it works. Did I detect a car in front? Have I? How do I set? No. Lane departure alert turn on. Your assist active. Okay. I do not know how this works. Maybe above a speed. Anyway, the NVH has improved a lot, but of course I still hear the engine is a diesel engine. At the end of the day, it is still a diesel engine, and it's very comfortable. Apart from the fact that the rear has a bump, like all pickup trucks. Maybe except the Navara, which doesn't have a heavy-duty suspension. Yeah, it's very comfortable. It's I would have been happy if this is available in the drag race that I did with Gisima a year ago, more than a year ago. Yeah. And I'm happy that we finally now have pickup truck interiors. I mean, after Mitsubishi Triton introduced the new Triton, right, with that really nice, proper passenger car-like interior, and then we saw how nice the interior of the Fortuner is. We finally now have proper interiors in the Hilux since this generation was introduced, right? It's so nice. It doesn't feel like you don't feel like you're in a Soviet factory or something where everything is just bare bone basics, you know. It's so nice now. Pickup trucks is so nice. And one more thing that you guys may not know is or some of you already know, you know how a car that is supposed to be 200,000 you know how a car that was supposed to be 200,000 or 210,000 and suddenly tax was removed and then they end up at 140,000 and then everybody rush out to buy them, right? You know about this scenario. I think Malaysians are very familiar with this scenario already, right? But guess what? Pickup trucks has always had their tax removed. So these cars, if subjected to the same amount of tax, they are actually the price of a base 3 Series. They cost that much to build. In the global market, they are that expensive. But somehow in Malaysia and probably Thailand, because of maybe how these cars are mostly used for commercial purposes, they're tax-free in a way. So when you buy a pickup, you are actually paying every single cent, every single dollar, every single ringgit for what it is worth. Right? Just think about it. A 2.8 liter engine, 4-wheel drive system, hardcore suspension, you know, all this. How can it cost roughly the same as a Civic or a Corolla, right? It's because they're tax-free. Those are not. So you're actually buying more car for the money. Way more. Alright? Let's do the walk around video. Parking sekejap, nanti keluar. Thank you. Number? Pas. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh, the AMG GT 63. Yep, my neighbor has officially sold his S63 coupe for this AMG GT 63. And an Aston Martin Vantage at the same time. Yep. 2 cars for one. Anyway, and we're slowly converting this ring road around our condo to a shared space. That means cars should no longer honk cyclists, right? We're making cars to have the lowest priority. So that's why you can see I'm keeping about 20 km/h inside here. Last time, people tend to be rather ambitious with their speeds. Yeah, I'll wait for the girl to pass me first before I do my 3-point turn. Go. All right. Yeah, this is my new preferred location for walk around video because that location really has a lot of mosquitoes. Let me turn the car around so that and then I can't avoid the sun. All right. Yeah, the car drives really well, and I think most pickup trucks drives really well now. and I think in terms of power, none of them are too slow to begin with now, apart from probably the D-Max, but the D-Max is usable for day-to-day, but nowhere in this range, or that of the Ford, or that of the Triton. All right, and I will have to say now that the two best looking exteriors would be the Hilux and the Triton, and interior, the Triton and the Hilux as well. And this one now has so many specifications, right? Very nice for all this to be included, but it's also not cheap now. It's 140,000, and every one of you may be thinking, wow, you know, they're charging us so much. Remember this: when ringgit was 3 ringgit to $1, right? These cars were already around 110,000, right, or 120, and now ringgit is a lot lower. Car makers are still keeping the price parity acceptable for us. Do remember that. All right. Cheers. Let's do the walk around.
Thank God that the brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And for quit it, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business is humongous, you would think that happens in there. Oh man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that.